I'd like to call the Butte-Silver Bowl Council of Commissioners regular meeting for Wednesday, May 19th, 2021 to order. Clerk, could we have a roll call?
11 present, 1 absent.
We have 11 present, 1 absent. Please note that Commissioner Shaw is absent today and excused. Commissioner Sorge, could you lead us with the prayer and the pledge?
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive, fellow commissioners. Almighty God, we implore you, look upon us and guide us this night as we make decisions which so greatly affect our community of Butte-Silver Bow. Direct our thoughts, words, and deeds so that we please you and best serve our fellow citizens. Amen. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. At this time, I move to approve the minutes from the May 5th, 2021 regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? It's all right. Okay, and now we'll give it a try. Commissioners, please vote. And it looks like we're, and Commissioner Sorge, there we go. And clerk, could you please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Any items not addressed on the agenda today? We do have one, as we have a suspension of the rules. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. There's been a finding of an existing emergency of permit suspension of rules to allow communication number 2021-249 to be added to the May 19th, 2021 agenda. In accordance with the provisions of Section 6 of Rule 6 of the Rules of Business of Council of Commissioners of the City and County of Butte-Silver Bow, State of Montana, the Council hereby finds that an emergency condition exists which requires that the Council rules be suspended to allow communication 2021-249 to be added to the agenda of the regular meeting of the Council. The reason for the suspension is as follows. Communication number 2021-249 is a communication from TIFID Administrator Kristen Rosa requesting that the Council authorize the Chief Executive to sign a customer agreement with Northwestern Energy, NWE, to obtain natural gas or electrical service related to a rail construction project occurring at the TIFID. This communication was not submitted by the deadline for the May 19th, 2021 agenda, as the customer agreement was not provided by NWE until today. In order to allow the rail construction project already in progress to continue in a timely manner and avoid a delay in NWE scheduling this work, Ms. Rosa is requesting that this matter be added to the May 19th, 2021 Council agenda. Based upon the foregoing and in order to allow this matter to be acted upon, the Council hereby finds that an emergency exists which requires the suspension of the Council's rules to add communication number 2021-249 to the agenda for the May 19th, 2021 regular meeting. I move to approve the suspension of the rules to consider placing communication number 2021-249 on the agenda at the May 19th, 2021 regular meeting for action was made by the Commissioner. Oh, that's my motion, sorry.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to place communication 2021-249 on tonight's agenda. Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? And clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Moving on to Chief Executive's report. As we all know, last couple weeks we had some tragic events with the M&M bar burning down, and you know, I want to kind of bring to light that there were other businesses affected as well, the surrounding buildings, the Party Palace with Ted Deschner, and also Tom Cronley with OMG. And so, you know, there was a lot of loss to, you know, just business activity in Uptown Butte. And so we're working with them, all the businesses, and moving forward with trying to help to go forward as they look to rebuild. There's some, I've been in communication quite often with Selena at the M&M about what the next steps are for her. And there's some positive light at the end of the tunnel, and some things that are progressing. I can't really announce as of right now, but I think there's some positive things that happen. I want to commend the actions of our firefighters, and also I want to point out that Leonard Hunter donated his crane and his expertise of operating a crane to help with taking down the sign. We were fortunate we had 3 people that work for Butte-Silver that have sign expertise to remove the sign, and that was firefighters Cal Clark and Chad Silk, and then also Dan Silk from Public Works that were there to help. And I also want to, you know, kind of point out Justin Powers with his expertise operating an excavator, and I want to thank Community Enrichment and Public Works for just being on site and throughout the whole ordeal to make sure that the public and the safety were taken care of. So we're very fortunate to have the talent that we have for Butte-Silver, and I feel very fortunate to lead a government that has that kind of talent. So I'm not going to go into much other detail except for, you know, our vaccination sweepstakes is going to move forward, and so that's exciting. I think next Thursday we'll be making an announcement about that, of how that's going to progress. So I'll wait on the detail of that, but it's progressing. You know, when you add a sweepstakes and things, there's a lot of detail that go into that, and so they're working hard to make sure that we're covering all our bases so that everyone that should be added to it is allowed to be part of that sweepstakes that Town Pump so generously donated. So with that, I'll conclude the Chief Executive's report, and we will move on to public comment on any item on tonight's agenda. If you would like to comment, please come forward and state your name and your address, and it looks like we do not have any, so we will move forward. And so next we'll move on to any written comments. They're welcome tonight. Clerk, do we have any written comments?
Nothing on the agenda.
Nothing on the agenda. All right, so moving on to bid openings and public hearings and or presentations. We do have one presentation, communication number 2021-209, Ellen Crane, Butte-Silver Public Archives Director, requesting Council of Commissioners concurrence to make a presentation on the May 19th, 2021 Council of Commissioners meeting. The presentation will provide a report on the activities of the Archives Chateau Department for the year 2020. Director Crane, welcome.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher and members of the Council of Commissioners. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to give the 40th annual report of the Butte-Silver Public Archives. I have with me this evening my Assistant Director, Aubrey Japp, and she'll be helping to talk about the things that she's been responsible for over the past year. In spite of everything that happened last year, we were surprised at the really tremendous year that we did have. So as you know from our ordinance being submitted to you earlier in the year, our job is to be the official record manager for Butte-Silver, and that we're also supposed to be collecting documents, photographs, and other ephemera that speaks to our history. We make public service a big component of our services to our community and the public at large. We work with educators to enhance the classroom experience, the preservation community as well, and we oversee the management of the Charles Clark Chateau. We have 2 fabulous historic structures that we take good care of. And we were surprised in 2020 that over 5,000 people were served out of our facility. We were closed a good amount of last year. And we were also surprised at what we learned, that when people are at home all the time, they clean, and they bring their cleaning to us. And so we had an overwhelming number of collections come in, some marvelous things came through our door. Please stop cleaning for at least 6 months. We also found that people went home and wrote and published and made great documentaries and wrote wonderful things about our histories. So I want to speak for a few minutes about that. With our closure, we found that we were able to do a lot more research for people online, and that really boosted our numbers, and it helped to boost our revenue as well. We did have over 1,000 people call us and say, can you help us with this question? A lot of people wanted to know where old bars were. It was really a funny sort of thing. We have a great social online presence, and our social media gets a lot of attention. Lindsay Mccarthy, who's my administrative assistant, she does the Instagram and Facebook with the assistance of Aubrey. We provide a brown bag lunch twice a month, and we had 14 in-person brown bags, and then Ron Davis offered us Party Line twice a month to move that venue on to a different platform. So Kim Kahn does the brown bag lunches, and she moved them to Party Line. It was a bit of a struggle at first, but people respond at the grocery store. They say, I loved Party Line. But we don't know that they're listening, so that's a little hard for us to measure. We had a lot of activity in our auditorium because we had a lot of space and we could spread people out during this COVID crisis. So we had a number of people use our facility, over 166 events. And we reach out in our community. We did 3 exhibits and moved those online. We got a lot of grant funds last year. People offered us money when we did not expect it, but we did a lot of great projects. We brought in about $46,000 in grants, and we posted 12 blogs. Took in almost 200 collections, had 34 publications go out. Aubrey has worked with KBMF and collected 25 oral histories. We scanned government record. And Jim McCarthy transferred 170 reels of film to a digital medium. And we took in 9 major collections from the government. These collections are everything from a piece of paper to 150 boxes of material.
So I'll talk a little bit about our programming. So throughout this year, we were able to host 3 exhibits. And you guys are welcome to kind of follow along in the book. Sorry, the microphone. Thank you. So our first exhibit was on Butte's Finnish community, and this was part of an All Nations project, which I'll touch base on a little further in the annual report. So we did an exhibit on our Finnish community. We did an exhibit on the German community. We had to move that online because we were closed during the time it was going to come up. We were disappointed we couldn't offer that in person, but it is available online, and we're working to move these other ethnic groups online as well. And then we also did an exhibit on Butte's Hispanic community. And we worked with members of these communities and got their stories, used their artifacts, used our archival holdings, and we were able to host those exhibits. If you continue for collaborative events, we worked with the Montana History Foundation out of Helena, and we hosted a gravestone preservation workshop. A gravestone preservationist, Jonathan Appel, he's out of the Washington, D.C. area. He decided he couldn't do his normal work because of COVID, so he did a 50-state tour in 50 days doing these free workshops around the country for everyone. So Butte was the place he chose for Montana. We had attendees from all over the state come. We had a great turnout. He showed how to repair headstones, and this was done at St. Patrick's Cemetery. And then he taught the Ancient Order of Hibernians, who's been doing just an amazing amount of work down there, more tools that they can use to further preserve that cemetery. We've been working for the past couple years with Parks and Rec, the Health Department, and the Superfund Department on Hike Through History. So that's been a really fun series, and those were put online with the Butte-Silver IT department. Nolan's gonna talk next.
The next collaborative event was the Road Attribution Project, which is my crowning glory in my career. I have been doing road research since I came to work at Butte-Silver Bow, and this project is going to save everyone so much time and be so much more efficient. We took the handwritten record and assigned data fields to it and transcribed it and mapped it. And it has been a wonderful tool for all of us to use. It really helps us identify roads that are really dedicated roads, roads that really are roads but aren't not maintained roads, and or private roads. And it is really an essential piece of knowledge for every member of this government. We started with 2 interns whose requirement was they had to be able to read cursive, which was much more of a struggle than you think it would be. And they spent most of the time using a pencil, which is also an interesting component. We worked with Jeremy Gappo in GIS. He is a remarkable mind, and the multiple layers of mapping is just a wonderful thing to see. And Jeremy or any member of the archive staff can show you this map and how it works. We were unable to finish because we simply miscalculated the amount of time it was going to take us to do this work. So our 2 interns, Walter Barber and John Daniel Holland, actually had to stop in 1935, 1940, and so we weren't able to finish. And it's a project that is on our to-do list, and we're hoping to get additional grant funds for that project. Oh, your book.
Sorry, we're sharing the microphone. So next is this All Nations project. So we worked with the Montana Preservation Alliance out of Helena on this. It was a 2-year project. We did workshops with the Finnish, Hispanics, Germans, and Jewish communities here, collected their stories. They brought in family artifacts. We were able to photograph them. They became collections of the archives. And then we did the exhibits I mentioned earlier at the archives. That was a really wonderful grant. The Jewish one in particular has resulted in a feasibility study for their temple that's funded through the URA this year. So it's really had an impact that is longer reaching than just that project. Next, so we're wrapping up the Verdigris project. We've been working with KBMF Radio for the last 4 years on this project. We're just one piece of it. Our component is to collect 100 oral histories of Butte citizens, so that ends this June. Last year we collected 25, and we're on, I think, like 96 now, so we just have a few left to capture this year. That's been really wonderful. A large oral history collecting project hasn't been done since the mid-'80s, so it's been really wonderful. Another component is Dick Gibson's doing 365 podcasts. Marion Jensen is doing a series on women, and Clark Grant with the station is doing 20-hour-long episodes about Butte's history, mining, and that sort of thing. Next, we worked with, last year we were going to host all of Butte's 5th grade students at the archives, and because of COVID, we weren't able to have them. So we got a National Endowment for the Humanities grant to put those materials online. So we were able to hire an intern. They digitized the packets. So if you go on our website, you can download a newspaper page, question sheet, word search. It's got a little blurb about the topic. We have about 35 topics on there. So we worked with Jim O'Neill at the school district to get that curriculum implemented to the 5th graders. And at the end of the school year, we'll be able to see hopefully if any of them were able to utilize that and be able to use it when hopefully next year kids can come back into the archives. All right, you're up.
So Humanities Montana helped us with our Irish grant. The Irish government gives the Friends of the Butte Archives several $1,000s a year to promote Irish learning. And we have large collections at the archives, so we put 2 major exhibits online, and Humanities Montana helped us hire an intern to do that through the summer. I hope you all noticed the picture of Jim McCarthy. For those of you who don't know Jim, he's a stellar gentleman and a great guy, and he is one of our chief volunteers. And he has transferred 170 rolls of film into a digital medium, and it's really a great gift. One of the biggest components of this are the sports films from Butte High School, and he does those for the Silver Bees. And it's great because it doesn't take our staff time. The archives has 49 volunteers. We could not function without them. They're our front line and a remarkable asset to our facility. And the collections that we took in. We selected a number of collections to talk about, and I'm only going to pick 2 to talk about this evening. The Frank Gardiner collection. Aubrey and I went down to Frank's home in Wisdom Road down in the Big Hole Valley and picked up a number of Anaconda Company annual reports, some texts that he had, and some of his personal papers. It's a great gift for us. Frank was instrumental in a big component of Butte's history in many ways, and so we were quite pleased to go and pick that up with Frank. We took in a big Girl Scout collection, Father Dornbos's family papers. And Dr. David Emmons donated his entire library to us. This is a collection that is really going to be a great asset to us. We have a lot of students who travel from all over the world to conduct history on the Irish in Butte, and I think it's because it's a small enough of a community to be studied. And his library will greatly enhance the capacity of those students to be able to research there.
And then, as Ellen mentioned earlier, last year, a lot of people, if they weren't cleaning, they stayed home and wrote and made books and podcasts and that sort of thing. So in our bibliography, you can see books, podcasts, blogs, radio, exhibits, television, and magazines that we contributed to our collections were used to in the development. And so we had a really large impact this year of people utilizing our resources at the archives. And as Ellen mentioned, we also oversee the management of the Clark Chateau. The Chateau was closed the majority of the year. They had a really difficult time with getting people in. However, they did a great job in kind of pivoting during COVID to still engage with the public. They have a ballroom players group that does small plays. They moved those to the radio for this year, and it's something they're continuing to do. So they've been able to work on that. They host a ukulele club, so they met during Zoom, which was pretty interesting. And the ukulele club has continued to grow, and they have their first gig at a nursing home this coming week, so that's kind of fun. And then they also hosted the Mary Mclean Book Club. They had a large series of books, one a month, and that was really well received, and they will be continuing that this year with the Ivan Doig Book Club. And then the Chateau was used for film crews this summer. We saw a lot of different film crews in Butte, so we had 2 different crews that used the Chateau for different scenes. And then the Chateau had a grant from the SARTA to renovate the 3rd floor. They were able to redo some flooring, get some old carpet removed, paint the stairwell up to the ballroom, and refinish the ballroom floors. So it looks really wonderful next time you guys are in there to take a look at that. And then as you continue, you can read about the Chateau staff, archives staff, and our board of directors. And then Ellen's just going to conclude real quick by talking about our Friends of the Archives Board.
Everybody needs friends, and our friends group is really great. They contribute about $35,000 a year to our facility. They help to promote our programs. They buy our computers. Last year they bought 4 public computers for the public to use in the facility, and they're buying the flat files to house our maps. They also supported the Hike Through History, which means that they're supporting not just the archives, but additional Butte-Silver Bow projects, and they matched the Verdigris grant. They also have our newspapers rebound. They transfer material into a digital medium. And this year, This past year, they offered a fellowship, the Carrie Johnson Fellowship, and a stipend for research students to come to Butte and spend 3 weeks studying a topic in Butte and publishing something on that. This broadens our reach and highlights aspects of our history that may not be understood otherwise. The Friends of the Archives has an independent board, and the crossover board member is Bill McKenzie, who is on the Archives board, and he's also serves on the Friends board. And the Friends of the Archives is a private nonprofit in good standing, and their books are handled by Prigge and Otten and available upon request. And you can look at the profile of the board members at the back of this book. And at this time, Aubrey and I would take any questions you may have.
Thank you, and thanks for the presentation. We all sure appreciate what the Archives does for our community, and thanks for the presentation. So I'll open it up for Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I don't have any questions, but during the pandemic and spending so much time at home, I did listen to one of the podcasts that you had listed. That was The Death in the West, which I highly recommend. But I just want to thank you guys for what you do, because after listening and immersing in Butte history in this last year, what we have is such a treasure, and what you guys do, it can't even be measured. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shea.
Thanks, Commissioner Shea. Any other commissioners have any questions or comments? Well, once again, I just want to thank you so much for what you do, and it is an asset to our community. So once again, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. So moving on, we will move to Section 2, Consent Agenda. Sections A1 through 4 and B1 through 5 with the addition of Communication 2021-249. Do we have any friendly amendments or segregations? Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I would like to segregate number 18, communication number 2021-241, please.
Okay. Any other segregations?
Chief,
Yes.
thank
Commissioner
you,
Frederickson.
thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. I would like to segregate out of the Committee of the Whole report, number 8, communication number 2021-217.
Communication number, give me that one again.
It's out of the Committee of the
Number
Whole
8.
report,
Yep.
8, communication number 2021-217.
Thank you. Any other segregations? Seeing none, Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to approve Section 2 of the consent agenda A, 1 through 4, and B, 1 through 25, with the exception of number 8 out of the Committee of the Whole report, communication number 2021-217, and 18, communication 2021-241.
We have a motion and a second. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. We'll go to our first segregation. Communication number 18, communication number 2021-241. Mark Neary, Public Works Director, requesting Council of Commissioners authorization for the Chief Executive, J.P. Gallagher, to sign an agreement with Deluxe Engineering for water main design services. Commissioner Sorge.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Thank you, Director Neary. Mark, I guess more than anything, Deluxe Engineering is a fairly new name to me, or probably to a few of us. So what actually makes them qualified? You know, you send it out to qualified engineering firms, so what makes them qualified?
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Sorge. Director Neary.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher, Commissioner Sorge, rest of the commissioners. For the record, I'm Public Works Director Mark Neary. Deluxe Engineering is owned and operated by Sarah Jones. She's a professional engineer. She's worked with Dow HKM, and I think she might have worked at Pioneer. We went out for an RFQ, and she meets all of the qualifications. So that it's all based on that, and we sent this out as an RFP to some of the qualified people in our RFQ search, and she was with 2 other engineering firms, and she was the one that we picked. And she is definitely qualified, and she does a lot of our stormwater reviews. She does a lot of stormwater designs for contractors around town, and she does a great job.
Thank you, Director Neri. Commissioner Sorge.
After hearing that, I'd make a recommendation to concur and place on file. Thank you, Mark.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place on file. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? Still got a couple, it looks like. Okay, Commissioner Frederickson. Okay, and clerk, could you please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yeas, 0 nay. Moving on to communication from Committee of the Whole report, communication number 2021-217. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Chief Executive Gallagher. Chief Executive asked me to segregate this because the Montana DEQ and had asked to give a presentation at next week's Committee of the Whole meeting, which is May 26th, 2021. And so I'm going to make a motion to allow for a presentation from Montana DEQ on the Montana Pole site at next week's Committee of the Whole meeting.
We have a motion and a second to move this to the Committee of the Whole agenda next week. Anything on the question? Commissioner Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. Would you just remind reading the title for the people that are
Yeah,
live streaming?
absolutely.
Thank you.
The communication reads, Communication 2021-217, Jim Fisher, Butte-Silver Bowl Commissioner, District 7, requesting Council Commissioners authorization for the Chief Executive, J.P. Gallagher, to invite someone from DEQ and EPA to our council meeting to update and explain the cleanup and future use of the Montana Pole site. Thank you. Okay. Commissioners, please vote. And I think we're Commissioner Shea. There we go. Okay. Clerk, could you please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving back to communication number 2021-249. It's communication from Tiffin Administration, Kristen Rosa, requesting that the council authorize the chief executive to sign the customer agreement with Northwest Energy to obtain natural gas or electrical service related to rail construction project occurring at the Tiffin. Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I see Ms. Rosa in the, if you don't have anything, you don't, okay. I move to concur with communication number 2021-249 and place on file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to concur and place communication number 2021-249 on file. Anything on the question? I did that, and could commissioners please vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. All right, moving on to, let's see, Section 4. I should have brought my glasses, apologize. Section 4, ordinance and resolution, suspension of the rules for final passage. We have 5 of these today, so start with resolution number 2021-18. Clerk, could you please read the body?
Number 1, Resolution 2021-18, a resolution,
Is that not?
We need to suspend the
Oh,
first.
okay.
So we need
Sorry, yeah, my fault. That's Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move for the suspension of the rules for the purpose of passing resolution number 2021-18 and resolution number 2021-19 by waiving subsection 7 of Rule 36 of the Rules of Order of Business of the Council of Commissioners, thereby having it considered for advanced passage without reference to the Judiciary Committee.
second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules. Could commissioners please vote? And clerk, could you please record the vote?
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. So now we will move to move on resolution number 2021-18. Clerk, could you please read the body?
A resolution amending the budget during the fiscal year in accordance with Section 7-6-4032 Montana Code annotated, providing for an emergency budget appropriation, appropriating unanticipated revenue to the Butte-Silver Bow Health Department from the Montana Department of Public Health and Human Services, and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2021-18 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on final reading. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yeas, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to resolution number 2021-19. Clerk, please read the body.
A resolution directing the Butte-Silver Bow Land Records Department on behalf of the treasurer to mail notice of pending tax deed issuance to all persons considered interested parties for each property for which there has been issued a tax lien certificate in accordance with the provisions of Section 15-18-212 Montana Code annotated. Further directing the treasurer to issue a tax deed for those parcels of property where there has been issued a tax lien certificate and the expiration date of the redemption period has expired and the required payments have not been made, and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2021-19 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. County Attorney Joyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I think this resolution was just introduced this time, so it should have been part of the motion to suspend the rules to pass on first reading, because it never did go to judiciary, but it needs to be passed in order for them to get the tax notices out in time. So it just should have been in the, if you,
I read both of the
You
resolutions.
did read it.
oh, I thought you did
Yeah, we
the
read
first
both.
two, not that one.
That was the second
That
one.
was the second one.
What was 2021, 18, and 19, and this is...
2020.
This is 19.
This
oh,
is
okay,
19.
Sorry.
Okay.
Two of them are numbered the same.
Are we good?
Yep, we're good.
Okay.
But
Okay.
is the
Could commissioners please vote? Commissioner Anderson, okay.
This is 13. See, you did 18 and 19, and this is 13.
No, this is, we're on 19.
Oh, okay.
We just read 19.
Sorry, okay.
Okay.
thanks.
We all, all right. Clerk, could you please record the vote? 11 yeas, 0 nay. Moving on to section 5, ordinance and resolutions for final reading. We have 5 of these. I believe, no, 4 of these to read tonight. We have resolution number 2021-13. Clerk, could you please read the body?
A resolution declaring the intention of the Council of Commissioners of the City and County of Butte-Silver, Montana, to extend special tourism business improvements District Number 1 for the purpose of promoting tourism, conventions, trade shows, and travel to the city, county of Butte-Silver, designating and describing the boundaries of said proposed special tourism business improvement district, providing for the publication and giving of notice of the passage and adoption of this resolution, and providing for the effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2021-13 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on final reading and passed. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Whoops, I'm a little quick. Okay, anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
Eleven yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Moving on to resolution number 2021-15. Clerk, please read the body.
A resolution amending the budget during the fiscal year after conducting a public hearing at a regular scheduled meeting of the Council of Commissioners in accordance with Section 7-6-4006 Montana Code Annotated, appropriating unanticipated revenue from the Superfund Program Trust Account proceeds and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2021-15 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on final reading. Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay. Moving on to resolution number 2021-16. Clerk, please read the body.
A resolution amending the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget during the fiscal year after conducting a public hearing at a regularly scheduled meeting of the Council of Commissioners in accordance with Section 7-6-4006 Montana Code Annotated, appropriating building code reserve funds to the Planning, Building, and Code Department for the purpose of hiring a building inspector and covering the associated costs and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2021-16 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move to final reading. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? Clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to resolution number 2021-17. Clerk, please read the body.
A resolution amending the budget during the fiscal year after conducting a public hearing at a regularly scheduled meeting of the Council of Commissioners in accordance with Section 7-6-4006 Montana Code Annotated, appropriating unanticipated revenue from the Wildland Fire Deployments Emergency Management Assistance Compacts to California to be used on the wages and benefits for those.
Commissioner Frederickson. Whoops, I'm sorry.
Members, sorry.
My fault.
Members who participated in the deployments and for equipment purchases for the fire department and providing for an effective date herein.
Commissioner Frederickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive. I move to place resolution number 2021-17 on final reading and passed, having been deemed fully read at length.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on final reading. Anything on the question? Could commissioners please vote? And would anyone like to change their vote? And clerk, please record the vote.
11 yea, 0 nay.
11 yea, 0 nay, motion passes. Moving on to the next section, public comment on any public matter not on the agenda tonight.
I have one letter from Dr. Ray.
We have one letter from Dr. Ray. Thank you. Go ahead and read.
Is the RMAP effective? What conclusions can be drawn from the medical monitoring study, RMAP Phase 2, submitted by Dr. John W. Ray? I was a medical monitoring Phase 2 working group member and community representative. I am also on the board of CTEC, Citizens Technical Environmental Group, the EPA tag in Butte. The views expressed here are my own and are not necessarily the views of any working group member or of CTEC. The medical monitoring studies, of which Phase 2 is a part, are being conducted in order to determine the efficiency of the Butte Residential Metals Abatement Program. The focus of the study is on blood lead levels in children in Butte. Beginning in 2003, blood lead levels in children have declined dramatically in Butte until 2011, when blood lead levels have declined much more slowly. The question is, did those levels decline due to the RMAP, which began in 1992? The study provides no direct evidence that the RMAP was primarily responsible for the decline. The study assumes that while the RMAP has continued to these declines, the magnitude of impact cannot be quantified. The study also cannot determine the extent to which past mining has contributed to elevated blood lead levels in children. No explanation is provided as to why the blood lead levels have plateaued in Butte beginning in 2011. Finally, the average of blood lead levels in children are higher than the national average. Moreover, there is insufficient data to study arsenic and mercury for an exposure study. Of course, arsenic and mercury are the other two major contaminants of concern in Butte. Previous arsenic biomonitoring studies in Butte have not found elevated arsenic exposure due to soil arsenic, but these measured acute rather than chronic arsenic exposure. Historical sources of lead exposure include paint, toys and jewelry, home remedies and cosmetics, imported candy, naturally occurring lead in soil, lead associated with water pipes in the homes and municipal water main pipes, industrial activity, commercial products, food, lead in dishes and ceramicware. Many of these are not addressed by RMAP. Many of these have been addressed in Butte through programs other than RMAP, which programs could also account for declining blood lead levels in Butte. For example, lead water main pipes, which we have seen nationally are a major source of lead contamination, have been replaced in Butte through NRDP funds. So the decline in Butte may not be attributable to RMAP, but to other causes. Also, the higher than the national average blood lead levels in children in Butte may be attributable to factors other than lead from past mining activity. The percentage of children in Butte that have elevated blood lead levels remains higher than the national percentage. Why? Why have blood lead levels plateaued? As RMAP addresses more and more residences, why not a continuing decline as was seen earlier? The study also considers the rates of various types of cancers in Butte and concludes that the rates in Butte are the same as the rest of Montana statistically. Mortality rates present a more complex picture and no definitive conclusions are reached in Phase 2. Other studies, such as those by Barry Haler and Davis and McDermott, have reached different conclusions and indicate a problem relevant to cancers commonly associated with exposure to lead and arsenic. If the story ended here, we would not have a compelling case for the efficiency of the RMAP. But A superfund is anticipatory in that it is designed to remediate toxics that pose a threat to human health. Certainly, the lead in Butte yards and homes is a threat to human health. The harms of lead exposure, particularly on children, is well documented and are the harms of chronic exposure to arsenic. These should be comprehensively remediated, and RMAP is an important part of the remediation picture. B, The precautionary principle, which is enshrined in Superfund law, mandates that action be taken to prevent harm, even when data or casualty is incomplete. Casualty is difficult to establish. The philosopher David Hume said that we can never fully justify the cause of anything. Diseases such as those associated with that toxics of concern in Butte have multiple causes, and it is impossible to determine that exposure to one toxic is the cause of one particular illness. But these limits must not paralyze action. We cannot demand more certainty from analysis than is possible. Analysis in the hope of an eventual certainty must not paralyze remediation. We know that exposure to lead and arsenic is harmful. There is lead and arsenic present in Butte soils. Therefore, it makes sense to remove this threat even if strict casualty cannot be ascertained. The best treatment for illness is to prevent it in the first place. C, if one uses John Stuart Mill's canyons of casualty, it can be determined that RMAP is a substantial contributor to declining lead levels in Butte. For example, the major change in lead abatement policy in Butte from 2003 to 2017 is the RMAP. While not the sole contributor or cause of declining lead levels in Butte children, one can safely deduce that the RMAP is a major cause of improvement. D, there is no doubt that the RMAP has substantially reduced the threat of lead exposure for Butte children. RMAP addresses lead and arsenic contamination in yards, living areas, and attics. One could not think of any pathway of exposure from residential soil that the RMAP fails to address. RMAP was not designed to address all possible routes of exposure to lead and arsenic, but the routes it does address are done so in a competent, extensive, and effective manner. RMAP has also engaged in extensive educational outreach to the community and has worked with diverse groups, including landlords and schools, to promote its activities. RMAP does what it was designed to do. E, RMAP, given that it has been concentrated in Uptown Butte, which has a disproportionate poverty rate, has been and is a major force in promoting environmental justice in Butte. As RMAP expands to encompass virtually all of Butte, special emphasis will be given regarding outreach to Butte's environmental justice community outside of the Uptown. F, the RMAP is an integral part of the current multi-pathway, multifaceted Superfund remediation in Butte that addresses toxics of concern primarily in water and soil. The RMAP is a national model of a successful lead abatement program. I have been asked at several national conferences, how was it that Butte got such a comprehensive program? To the credit of EPA, Atlantic Richfield, and Butte-Silver local government, we have a program that systemically and comprehensively and effectively ameliorates a major threat to children's health in our community. Due to this partnership, we have a program that goes far beyond anything that Superfund could mandate. We should ask the question, would Butte children be better off with or without RMAP? Prevention is better than cure. Erasmus.
Thank you. So moving on to calendar and other meeting and events, please note all of the different meeting times. And so with that, I will move for a motion to adjourn. Oh, Commissioner Reardon.
We have a gentleman in the room here that usually doesn't show up at the meetings, and that's George Skuletich, and rumor is that he's getting ready to retire after 40 years of service, and we don't usually see him at the meetings that much, so I just wanted to catch him, and I'm sure all the commissioners are on board with this for the great job that the Sheriff's Department has done, and thank him for his 40 years of generous service to Butte-Silver. Good luck on your retirement. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Thanks, George. Thanks for showing up today. Maybe that's why Sheriff Lester sent you. Oh. His kids didn't get his skill then. So I'll take a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everyone.